On a large screen via video link, Donald Trump looms over the room, his body language screaming confidence. He's all broad gestures and practiced dominance, his red tie practically glowing against the stark background, a deliberate choice to draw eyes. His expression flips between smugness and irritation, a pattern anyone who's watched him knows well. The camera angle, slightly upward, boosts his presence, a subtle trick to reinforce the authority he's used to projecting. The room itself screams institutional power, the great seal on the wall, the elevated dais for members, the hierarchy baked into the space. Journalists line the back, turning this into a media spectacle, while staff whisper to reps and audience members shift in their seats, sensing history in the making. Crockett isn't just bringing credentials to this fight, she's carrying the weight of her lived experience as a black woman who's navigated systems built to exclude her. A former civil rights attorney and public defender, she knows how institutions weaponize language and symbolism to marginalize dissent. Early in her career, she learned that emotional reactions, even when justified, often let opponents dismiss her as irrational. Every trial was a lesson in strategic composure, every hostile judge a crash course in balancing respect with resolve. Past confrontations like Marjorie Taylor Greene's jab about her eyelashes or constant digs at her appearance honed her ability to turn personal attacks into public education. At 44, she no longer feels the need to justify her place in rooms of power. Her preparation speaks for itself. Hey everyone, get ready for a story that'll have you on the edge of your seat. We're diving into a moment that turned a routine House Oversight Committee hearing into a defining clash of power, dignity, and strategy. Picture this: Donald Trump, expecting to bulldoze his way through with his usual barrage of insults, goes head-to-head with Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. But what happens over the next 7 minutes doesn't just silence the room. It flips the script on how institutional power can be confronted with calculated calm. No one saw it coming, least of all Trump, that a single word delivered with the precision of a seasoned attorney would dismantle his intimidation tactics and expose a truth about character and authenticity that even his staunchest defenders couldn't ignore. Let's set the stage. The hearing room is buzzing under harsh fluorescent lights, casting sharp shadows across the faces of committee members. The hum of TV cameras captures every tiny expression, while the air conditioning struggles against the heat from the broadcast equipment and the mounting tension. The mahogany table gleams cool to the touch, despite the charged atmosphere. Papers rustle as representatives shuffle their materials, a soft rhythm under the insistent tapping of journalists' keyboards in the back row. The faint smell of coffee from an earlier break mixes with subtle colognes, grounding this high-stakes showdown in a very human setting. At the center of it all sits Jasmine Crockett, a 44-year-old powerhouse whose presence radiates authority without arrogance. Her glasses catch the studio lights as she methodically arranges her documents, every move deliberate. Her well-maintained nails, once mocked by opponents, gleam subtly, turning a past attack into a symbol of professional dignity. Dressed in a tailored navy suit with a simple gold pin on her lapel, as a nod to her constitutional oath, she embodies focused readiness, straight-backed, yet not rigid, alert, but not tense. This is a woman who's been here before, and she's ready for battle. On a large screen via video link, Donald Trump looms over the room, his body language screaming confidence. He's all broad gestures and practiced dominance, his red tie practically glowing against the stark background, a deliberate choice to draw eyes. His expression flips between smugness and irritation, a pattern anyone who's watched him knows well. The camera angle, slightly upward, boosts his presence, a subtle trick to reinforce the authority he's used to projecting. The room itself screams institutional power, the great seal on the wall, the elevated dais for members, the hierarchy baked into the space. Journalists line the back, turning this into a media spectacle, while staff whisper to reps and audience members shift in their seats, sensing history in the making. Crockett isn't just bringing credentials to this fight, she's carrying the weight of her lived experience as a black woman who's navigated systems built to exclude her. A former civil rights attorney and public defender, she knows how institutions weaponize language and symbolism to marginalize dissent. Early in her career, she learned that emotional reactions, even when justified, often let opponents dismiss her as irrational. Every trial was a lesson in strategic composure, Every hostile judge a crash course in balancing respect with resolve. Past confrontations like Marjorie Taylor Greene's jab about her eyelashes, or constant digs at her appearance, honed her ability to turn personal attacks into public education. At 44, she no longer feels the need to justify her place in rooms of power. Her preparation speaks for itself. Her folders aren't just full of facts. They're a roadmap of narrative and strategy, each document chosen for its impact. The night before, she rehearsed not just her questions, but her responses to deflections anticipating Trump's evasions. This isn't just professional for her, it's personal. Growing up in St. Louis, she saw how distant policies crushed communities. Her mother, a public school teacher for 30 years, drilled into her that dignity is non-negotiable, especially against those who deny it. They may have more money, more connections, more volume, her mom would say, but they can't have more truth unless you surrender it. That lesson, truth with dignity, carries authority, guides her from courtroom to Congress. Trump, on the other hand, represents a system that mistakes volume for authority, intimidation for leadership. His playbook against women in power is predictable: question, competence, attack, appearance, use diminutive language. It's worked for decades because it rarely faces strategic resistance. When challenged, he just gets louder, shifting focus from substance to emotion. His confidence comes from years of seeing institutions bend to avoid conflict, substance sacrificed for superficial peace. But this hearing isn't just about border policies. It's a test of whether strategic dignity can counter tactical aggression, whether evidence can beat spectacle in an era obsessed with the latter. Viewers at home instantly recognize the dynamic: an older man using status and volume to silence a competent woman. It's a scene straight out of boardrooms and family dinners. Women over 50 especially nod in recognition, having faced this countless times without a public platform. "I've been there," a 67-year-old retired executive whispers to her TV, where every response is a choice between authenticity and strategy. Trump kicks off with a jab. "Congresswoman, I've been told you want to question me about border policies, but honestly, I'm not sure someone with your limited understanding of complex issues should be using up valuable time. But go ahead. I'll keep my answers simple enough for you to follow." The room falls silent, all eyes on Crockett. Instead of snapping back, she lets 3 seconds of silence hang, her expression unchanged, as she finishes organizing a document. That small act of control, refusing to be rushed, speaks louder than any retort. Viewers lean forward, sensing the power of her pause. "Thank you, Mr. President, for joining us today," she finally says, her voice measured. "I appreciate your concern about using time valuably. In fact, efficiency is precisely what I'd like to discuss." She sidesteps his bait about her intelligence, redirecting to her topic. The slight arch of her eyebrow, barely noticeable, is her only nod to his personal attack. Trump's face flickers with confusion. His punch missed its mark, but he recovers, falling back on familiar ground. Efficiency. That's rich, coming from a Democratic Congress that's wasted more taxpayer money than any in history. If you understood government or business, you'd know I ran the most efficient administration ever. Again, Crockett doesn't bite. She opens a folder, reviewing it briefly. A tactical pause, not a necessity. Viewers at home recognize it. She's making him wait, letting his words hang. "I have specific questions about efficiency metrics during your administration," she continues, as if his outburst was calm input. "Would you agree that efficient management requires accurate tracking of resources?" "Of course it does," Trump snaps. "I built a global business empire tracking every dollar. Nobody knows more about efficiency than I do, believe me." "Excellent, then we have common ground," she says, with a brief, contained smile, not seeking approval but confirming a point. "I'd like to discuss the tracking of separated families at the southern border during your administration. The shift is subtle but brutal. By agreeing on a principle, efficiency needs tracking, she sets up a failure of that very principle." Attorneys watching nod in appreciation. It's a logical trap. Trump deflects instantly. "We had the best tracking, perfect tracking. Any problems came from the previous administration's policies that we inherited." "I appreciate your perspective," Crockett replies, neither accepting nor challenging him. She lifts a document. "According to this DHS memo from April 2018, current tracking systems are inadequate for maintaining accurate links between parents and children once separated." "Were you aware of these documented inadequacies?" The room chills. It's not an emotional plea about family separation. It's a factual hit on administrative competence territory Trump claimed as his strength. His voice edges defensive. I was given different information. My people told me everything was handled perfectly. If there were problems, it was career bureaucrats undermining me. Crockett nods, reframing his defense as an admission of being uninformed, another leadership fail. I understand you feel you received incomplete information. Let's continue with the timeline. She cites a June 2018 federal judge's order to reunite families, followed by contradictory statements from Trump's administration within 24 hours. One claiming a central database existed, the next admitting it didn't. Would you help me understand how your HHS secretary could testify about a database that, per your Justice Department, didn't exist? 3 seconds of silence follow a void Trump rushes to fill. Look, this is the largest government in the world. Things fall through cracks, but we fix them. The real problem was inherited policies and Democratic obstruction. His answers grow longer, a sign of discomfort noted by communication experts. Crockett makes a deliberate note, signaling his response is recorded, adding subtle pressure. I appreciate the complexity of government operations. Given that, would you agree clear communication between agencies is essential for efficiency? Absolutely essential, Trump says. We had the best communication, perfect communication. Everyone said so. Thank you, that frames my next question, she replies, pulling another document. This July 2018 Justice Department email expresses frustration that HHS has no records for approximately 700 children, including 100 under age 5, who may have been separated. The room tenses. The specificity of 700 children, 100 under 5 turns abstract policy into human impact. Trump's voice rises. Those were temporary issues resolved. Every child was eventually accounted for. Crockett counters. According to 2023 court filings, over 1,000 children still haven't been reunited 5 years later. Would you consider that temporary? His frustration shows. Those numbers are fake news made up to make me look bad. We had everything under control until the current administration created chaos at the border. That's what you should investigate, not old policies that worked perfectly. Crockett stays composed, refusing to be derailed. I'd like to return to administrative efficiency we agreed was important. Court records show your administration's inability to maintain records cost taxpayers over $20 million to locate and reunite families. Is that efficient use of resources? Trump denies the numbers, claiming they're inflated by enemies. Crockett pulls another report from his own inspector general, confirming lack of integration between systems, impeded reunification, leading to avoidable costs. It's not partisan. It's his own government contradicting his perfect claims. The room falls silent. Accusations of bias won't stick. Trump doubles down on inherited crises, but Crockett nails the timeline. The family separation policy was announced by your Attorney General in April 2018, over a year into your term. How is this inherited? His response escalates to personal attack. The previous administration separated families too. They just weren't criticized like me. If you had actual experience with border issues, instead of reading talking points, you'd get it. Women watching recognize the shift when facts fail, attack credentials. Crockett doesn't flinch. I appreciate your concern about my background. Before Congress, I was a civil rights attorney and public defender in Texas, working with immigrant communities. But today, I'm focused on the administrative record, not our qualifications. She pivots to budget analysis from Trump's own OMB. Family separation costs $775 per person per day versus $298 for family detention and $58 for alternatives. From a fiscal perspective, is a policy doubling costs while creating challenges. Efficient, Trump claims a deterrent effect saved billions, but Crockett counters with CBP data showing a 14% increase in crossings post-policy. Each time, she uses his own administration's evidence, making fake news defenses hollow. Her final blow lands on record destruction. Court filings from 2023 show your officials admitted destroying critical tracking spreadsheets. Is deliberate destruction consistent with efficient management? Trump's expression darkens. That's false, more lies. If documents were lost, it was standard procedure or incompetent bureaucrats. I ran the most transparent administration in history. The gap between most transparent and destroyed records draws visible disbelief from committee members. Crockett summarizes, you've suggested failures were due to inherited issues or persecution, yet evidence from your agencies shows decisions by your leadership caused human and fiscal costs. As someone who prides himself on accountability, who wrote The Art of the Deal, and says the buck stops with you, is there any aspect of this policy's implementation you'd acknowledge as your responsibility? The question, using his own words, traps him. Denying accountability contradicts his leadership image. Trump pivots, claiming credit for the policy, but not failures, deflecting to current border issues. Crockett clarifies, so you take responsibility for the policy, but not documented failures in implementation. Her framing exposes the contradiction without accusation. His frustration peaks, but she's unshaken, proving strategic dignity can outmaneuver tactical aggression. This wasn't just a hearing, it was a masterclass in confronting power with evidence and calm, redefining how accountability looks in public spaces. What do you think? Did Crockett's approach change the game? Or was this just another political clash? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep this convo going. Politics moves fast, and there's always more drama ahead. The personal attack represented another escalation. A common tactic when factual defenses begin to crumble by questioning her motives and implying partisan bias. He attempted to delegitimize not just her questions, but the entire oversight process. The term political agenda sought to reframe factual inquiry as partisan maneuver, a final attempt to escape the documentary evidence through character assassination. Crockett remained composed, neither defensive nor retaliatory. Mr. President, throughout this hearing, I've relied exclusively on documents produced by your own administration, internal memos, court filings, inspector general reports, and sworn testimony from your appointed officials. These aren't partisan materials, but the official record of your government's actions and their consequences. Her response was perfect, not engaging with the personal attack, but calmly highlighting the factual foundation of her inquiry, making accusations of bias increasingly difficult to sustain when confronted with his own administration's documentation. The emphasis on your own administration reinforced that the evidence came not from political opponents,